Heidegger thought that Western philosophy had gone wrong basically since the time of Socrates, which is, quite a long time. And he said that we became interested in what the world was made of and how we knew things, and what we should have been interested in instead was the nature and quality of being. And what he meant by being isn't the objective world. What he meant by being was the manner in which you have experience. And so there are elements of being that aren't objective elements. And so I would say pain is a phenomenological reality, right? It's not something you can index it objectively, but the index is not the phenomena. And is your pain real? See, this is a question for people who think there's no such thing as meaning. Like, you try to argue yourself out of pain and see how far you get. You might think, well, that's not the sort of meaning I meant. It's like, a negative meaning is a place to start, right? Because if something's negative and it's real, it does imply that there's something positive that's real. It might be harder to get a hold of. At least it's not pain, but pain, Descartes, and I'll close with this, you guys can have a break. Descartes implemented a method he called radical doubt when he went on his philosophical journey. And what Descartes looked for was one thing he couldn't doubt, because he was probably clinically depressed, and he was just doubting everything. It's like, well, how do I know the world isn't just a mirage made by an evil demon to obfuscate reality from me? Well, his conclusion was the one thing that he could not dispute was that he was and could think. Now, I don't think Descartes really meant what we meant by think. I think he meant more what we would mean by experience. Because thought has become a much more narrowly defined term since the time of Descartes. So I don't think he meant I think, therefore I am. I think he meant something like I experience. I have experience, therefore I am. But regardless of that, modern people think about it as thought. Heidegger was different. Heidegger basically said, the one thing you can't dispute is that experience is your experience. It exists. You can't, it's almost by definition, right? It's like the definition of exist. And then he was interested in what the fundamental elements of existence were. And they're not atoms, like the fundamental elements of the objective world. They're more things like pain. And for me, that was the thing that stopped me from doubting. It's like, I cannot doubt the existence of pain. It seems real. And I might say it seems more real than anything else. Now, you might say you don't believe that, but I would say, I don't care what you think you believe. I'll watch you when you're in pain. And every single one of your actions will indicate that you believe in it. And not only that you can't not believe in it. Right? It's there, and it's there so much that, well, that's a meaning. And so it's in that way that Heidegger, at least in part, thought of existence as, or experience as, composed of meanings. And so part of the reason that this course is called Maps of Meaning is because one of the things we're going to look at is the structure of meaning. And we're going to start with negative meaning because, from my perspective, look, you can doubt whether or not good exists. But once I'm done telling you about the things I know about human history, there won't be a single person in this room who thinks that evil doesn't exist. And you might think that's a bloody horrible thing to learn, but it's not. It's unbelievably useful because once you can establish something that you cannot deny, then you can move from that. And I think you can hypothesize that if you're capable of detecting radical evil, I'll tell you about Unit 731 at some point, or you can look them up yourself. I wouldn't recommend it, by the way. Once you can identify radical evil, and you think, well, that's just, beyond a doubt, that's reprehensible. There's no justification for that whatsoever, no matter what, whenever. Well, then you've got something to stand on. And you can start thinking, well, what's the absolute opposite of that then? It might be, how is it that you could conduct yourself so that in your sphere of influence, the probability that anything like that would ever happen is reduced to the absolute maximum? Well, that's a reasonable moral question. And I don't think it's something that you can dispense with like a casual nihilism. I don't think a nihilist can dispense with it. Because even nihilists suffer. Thank God for that. It's their only source of potential salvation. Sometimes they notice it. Oh, I'm suffering about all this nihilism. Maybe that indicates that there's something flawed in it. It's always possible.